Hello there, you're watching the polls on the Joy News channel, and this afternoon Ghana's credit worthiness has been downgraded to further junk status as international ratings agency Fitch is partly blaming this on the failure of government to honor interest payments on matured bonds. And Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta is expressing surprise as to why there's a continuous picketing as is office by pensioner bondholders.
Well, the president is the final person to take these decisions. So we have laid our cards on the table. The minister has tried to explain to us, but we said we don't see any difficulty.
Also, the Ghana Education Service is calling on parents to be on high alert as it announces the placement of students in various schools across the country.
Caution parents and guardians to be on the alert for unscrupulous individuals who may approach them to pay any amount of money for the placement of the awards.
And a little later, we'll also talk about this. Attorney General and Minister for Justice Godfred Yeboah is defending his decision to ask the Auditor General Johnson Ekwuama Asiedu to unpublish his latest special report on COVID-19. We have details of a statement from the Auditor General. And this afternoon, we're talking about the economy because the international ratings agency Fitch is further downgrading Ghana's economy to further junk status. The agency points to government's failure to honor payments on matured bonds as having implications for the economy and the recent default on local bonds that matured on February 6 and another which is due for payment this week. So joining us now is Isaac Kofi, data analyst with the Joy Research Desk. Will be helping us out to understand why we're getting this latest downgrade. Kofi, take us away. What are the factors accounting for this? We also do know, and first of all, are learning that Ghana's domestic debt exchange appears to be featuring in some of the reasons why we're here.
Well, on 14 February, which was Valentine's Day, this was the gift that Ghana got. We actually had a downgrade from Fitch ratings agencies. This is on our local currency bonds. So anytime they downgrade us, we have about 3 downgrades. We have the long-term issuer, credit ratings, and we have one on foreign currencies and the other on the local currencies. So this one that they've released is ratings on our local currencies, bonds that we have on our local currency. They started warning us right from February last year. It's been exactly a year that Fitch, S&P, and Moody's all started warning us, giving us downgrade that a default was imminent. At this point in time, as the domestic debt exchange has been successful, it tells you that government has actually indirectly announced its default on bonds held in local currency. So this is the first time we actually seen Ghana's credit rating reaching an RD. It means further junk territories, and then it simply tells you that government at this point has announced default. They are not going to honor their loan obligation to local creditors, but they've actually made a promise that those who did not participate in the domestic exchange program, they're going to find ways and means to make sure that they pay them. But this was actually the main reason why we are seeing this current ratings that we see on our books. So our local bonds have been downgraded to an RD status.
Okay, but the implications on the economy now, the last time this happened, obviously the penalty for this was that we're shut out of the international market. What's likely to be the effect now? Some say we are already out of the market, so yeah, it's business as usual.
Yeah, so the first one that was released was for external, credit or external bonds, and then we were shut out of especially the Eurobond market. This one, for instance, we ourselves as a government or as a country, we are shutting ourselves out of our own local bonds market. So it means that going forward in 2023, this year, 2024, there is not going to be anything like, government bonds for people to buy anymore. The only bonds that will be available will be the new exchange bonds. So for instance, if you look at government, this year wants to spend 205 billion Ghana cedis and raise 143 billion cedis, leaving a deficit of 61 billion. So usually we fund this with Euro bonds. We fund this with some, bilateral and multilateral, arrangements with syndicated loans. And then also we come to the domestic front. We look to treasury bill markets and borrow from there. The bonds market was giving us so much, but at this point in time, we have no bond market as we speak because investors have lost interest in there. So it means that in 2023, government is not going to get any, borrowed monies from the bonds market. We have actually shut ourselves out of our own bonds market, and we owe, investors some, debt in our own currencies that we can't even pay. How much more those that we are owing in other currencies? So Fitch is actually warning us that this is the default for local currencies or bonds held in local currencies. And then they are also anticipating that if government is successful with the arrangements it wants to have with the external, creditors, there's going to be another downgrade. That will be at the external level. Okay.
So now, of course, we're seeing a bit of a respite with the inflation rate. Why are we not having a corresponding effect? The fact that, well, the indicators appear to be bouncing back to life. I don't know if that's the best way to describe this.
Well, this one, for instance, is restricted to borrowings, okay, and your ability to pay the loans that you've taken. It's good we're having inflation stagnating or plateauing at this point in time. We actually forecasted that between this period up to March, we see inflation actually plateauing. Then we will probably be seeing an increase at a decreasing rate. The reason why we are not seeing this reflect in the current ratings is that it does not have a direct relationship with the current ratings we're seeing here. And this is because this ratings we're seeing is on local bonds and government's ability to pay the bonds. So this is the final, to me, this is the final ratings. This is the point that we've reached the bottommost bottom. And they are telling you that when you reach this point, it means government is announced and telling you that if I'm owing you, I can't pay. If I'm owing you, I can't pay. And then if I would have to pay, the only way out is to do a restructuring. And we've seen government announce the domestic, debt exchange program. So the reason why we are not seeing this tied to maybe exchange rates or the inflation is because we are dealing with local currency. This is a downgrade on domestic bonds. So probably if you see Fitch release the ratings for external bonds, then we probably can relate it to exchange rates and relate it to inflation. But still, we can still say that there's some correlation in there, but the correlation or the relationship in there is not as strong as probably we have it at the external.
Isaac, thank you. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta himself has expressed surprise at the continuous picketing at his office by pensioner bondholders, insisting government has addressed their concerns. The group convened at the Finance Ministry this morning to resume picketing as they received the support of some pressure groups, such as the of course, Arise Ghana and others, including the Fix Ghana movement. But listen to, of course, the leadership of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum, starting off with Dr. Edu Anani Entry.
It is day 8 of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum picketing right here at the Ministry of Finance. This morning, they have converged once again with one voice, a total exemption from the domestic debt exchange program, which they have been calling for the past week and a half. Now, almost every day get attraction from one personality to the other. And this morning is the Arise Ghana group joining them to solidarize with them.
Well, we are doing the engagement, talking to Parliament. Yesterday we were there. We were able to get a majority leader to speak with. We're trying to get the minority leader. We didn't get him, but whilst we're coming out of Parliament, we met him, and he promised he was going to call me yesterday in the evening. I believe maybe some other things took his time, so he couldn't call. When I called, it was very late.
So have they agreed on a meeting with you?
We have a meeting that has been scheduled by the Speaker's office. So we are we are going to the Speaker's office on at 3 o'clock today.
At 3 o'clock today?
Yes.
What exactly are you going to tell him?
No, we are going to explain our situation to the minister, to the Speaker. We want Parliament to understand what we are doing.
I think it is the highest level of immorality that government will get into this business where they are looking to underwrite their responsibility with people's pensions and livelihoods. It should never have been part of the conversation in the first place. And these people are right to be here. Now, it's also important that for me, whenever government speaks, that we take the time to listen clearly and scrutinize that. The government issued a statement yesterday, in fact, where it's saying that it was going to uphold the voluntary commitments according to government's own fiscal commitments, not in according to the terms of the contracts that they have with these people. And when these things happen, we know where this is going. This kind of language have led us to in the past. In fact, there was coupons which were due on February 6th which have not been paid. So let's not assume that once government has spoken and that's it. If we believed government in the first place, we shouldn't even be having a haircut. Because the president himself went on national TV and told this nation there was not going to be any haircut. But we are in a situation whereby whenever government speaks, it's nothing but doubt and uncertainty. That's why these people are showing up and speaking in this manner.
You know, there's a saying that says that a nation that does not honor its heroes is not worth dying for. These are people, these are our heroes, people who have served this country in various capacities. And they've gone through retirement, and the monies that they've put aside to take care of themselves so they don't become a burden on their families, the government insists that that is the only way it can revive the economy, is to take away those monies from these vulnerable people. Especially in a country where we don't have any social protection plan for the aged. In other jurisdictions, they have cards that they can take trains for free, they can take buses for free, they can take certain medications for free. We don't have any social protection plan for the aged. And so if we don't have anything to give them, we shouldn't be taking away from them. This is extremely insensitive.
I had a press release a couple days ago, and I thought I had made it unequivocally clear that, all government bonds will be honored, and that, therefore, whether you are voluntary or not, whether you have tendered or not, it will be respected. So I really want to understand why we are still here, so that if there's anything more I can say, I can do that. But really, if you look at the press statement, it emphasized the fact that this was voluntary, and about 15–16% of the pensioners actually tendered, but they chose to. The bulk of you did not, but I had indicated that it was voluntary, which means that we will honor those payments. What I tried to do in giving you the option was that about almost 80% of you have bonds that go beyond 5 years, from 5 years going. And so in the new arrangement where I have brought everything down to below, from 5 years down, it makes it easier to get your lump sum money faster. That's your choice. It makes it easier. Anytime you are able to get your money ahead of time is good for you. But that's really your choice. And therefore, a lot of you decided not to take it. But that was really the basis of giving you the option. But if you chose not to take the option, we made it clear that we will honor those things. So really, there's no reason for us to be sitting here, because that assurance is been given on paper. So that's why I really want to talk with you guys to see what it is that you are afraid of or that you think will not happen. So my issue, which I told your leader, was that now you have very little of the old bond in the system, which means that in the event of a crisis personally, your ability to trade that paper in is really diminished. But that's a choice you make, that, I don't really care about that, I'll continue holding that. And we are saying if you continue holding that, fine, government would honor those papers. So I'm a little unclear, you know, as to exactly what now the problem is. And I'm looking at the lady here because she keeps shaking her head. So maybe I'm not getting through, and I would like her to you. Yeah. I beg your pardon? Well, if the no. Are you a pensioner?
So if you can hear me, the minister has come here, and his concern is that he needs to have an audience with them inside to know exactly what their concerns are. And yes, there's a bit of chaos because when the minister posed the question to know what was happening, there was some sort of interference from the Arise Ghana leader who brought up the issue of mistrust of citizens in government. Looks like the minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, was not happy with that, and so he questioned whether he is also part of the pensioners group, and I think that's what brought the chaos, and he's walked away, and so we would follow to know exactly what would be the next line of action. He's moved to the other side of the ministry in anticipation to continue the address and hear from the group, the pensioner bondholders, to know exactly what the problem is. If you listen closely, you will realize that the minister was restating the point that it is voluntary, and that is what they have made known to the group. And so he clearly do not understand why they continue to picket at the ministry. And so it is a clarification of that matter he was seeking when the confusion started. And so he has moved to the conference room, going to have an audience with Dr. Edouard Nanyentwi as well as the rest of the team. And we would be hanging around to see what they come out to say. And so that's what the situation here is, a bit of confusion from the response to the minister from the leader of the Fix the Country group, Oliver Bakavoma, who raised the question of trust, whether they can trust him on that engagement he's going to have them indoors, which brought the matter, the confusion. So, and Dr. Edouard Nanyentwi, you said that the minister says he's going to meet with the president. Why does he have to take him to meet the president to arrive at a decision? Has he been telling you anything about that?
Well, the president is the final person to take these decisions. So we have laid our cards on the table. The minister has tried to explain to us, but we said we don't see any difficulty. What is the difficulty the minister is facing? What is the difficulty this country will face when you say you have exempted pensioners from this exchange? Now,
yesterday you indicated that he has granted the same demands you are making to other groups. Did he tell you why your decision would have to be taken in conjunction with the president?
No, well, he just explained that those were like corporate ones, the pension funds, and they can use their funds to do something as a group. So that's easier. If you don't want to bring them under, you can design a package for them. But the difficulty is the individuals. If you exempt them, you can't treat them as that one.
Dr. Felix Nyako is an economist. Is joining us via Zoom. Isaac Ofieje is still with us here in studio. We'll get to the details of the warning coming through from Fitch ratings. But Doc, thank you for your time. Here we are. There's a downgrade, and part of the reasons is because we're defaulting on our debts. So how dire is the situation for the Ghanaian economy?
Thank you very much. It is very, very dire. This alone tells you that the Ghana government or Ghana as a country is bankrupt. It means we are bankrupt. We cannot honor our creditors. That is as simple as it is. So therefore, anyone dealing with the government of Ghana must know that you will not, or Ghana government may not honor its promises when it is due. And it's that. Look, why are we here? The situation is that we have borrowed to the extent that we cannot pay. As we speak, we are supposed to pay the individual bondholders whose coupon are due on the 6th of February. There was a release that the payment will be honored this week. And what we see again, we have seen that the payment has been postponed to the 21st or something of this month. So Fitch is telling us, or Fitch is only describing the situation in which we find ourselves. The economy is in a mess, we are bankrupt, and we cannot honor our creditors. It's as simple as that.
Okay, but now, at least government is indicating that they're taking some remedial steps to address the concerns, for instance, of the pensioner bondholders. How is that going to feed into the confidence that at least there's a leeway and that there's a possibility that when government is through this economic hardship and at least we have some bailout coming from the IMF, that may improve our situation?
Look, my brother, what confidence is the finance minister reposing on these pensioner bondholders? It's simple, a matter of trust. And this government cannot be trusted. They will say one thing today, tomorrow is another thing. Were we not here when we were told that the pensioner bondholders will not be part of the DDEP? That was what we were made to believe. But later on, we were told that they are part. Now, the finance minister is telling us that it is voluntary. If it is voluntary, why then will you be telling the people that if you don't subscribe to the DDEP, then you cannot be able to trade your bond when you want to trade it? I mean, contracts are contracts, and as long as you want to change the terms of the contract, at least the one you have signed with should be able to come to terms with you. So for me, I think that, look, the mistrust is there. Nobody can trust the finance minister. So therefore, there is no confidence in the system going forward. Look, we are made to understand that they have achieved about 84% right? But my brother, have we gotten what makes up the 84% of the DTEP program they have achieved? No. What percentage makes up from the financial sector, the insurance sector, the individual bondholders and all that? What makes up the 84% that we are talking about? So it is all because people don't trust this finance minister. So therefore, people are skeptical going forward. So it is not of anything that Fitch would downgrade Ghana. Okay? So I think that nobody has confidence in the country, nobody has confidence in the government, nobody has confidence in the president. And it is high time I call on the chairman of the economic management team, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Baumia, to at least speak. His silence is causing a whole lot of issues. So he should speak. You understand? So for me,
what would that add to the economy, by the way?
Well, he is the chairman of the economic management team. Okay, so we were made to understand that he is the economic wizard and all that. So he must come and explain the situation to us.
All right.
Okay, you see, once you are able to explain where we are and the reason why we need this, I think that would send a strong signal to the citizenry that at least government has accepted or has made us to believe or has made us to understand that we are where we are because of A, B, C, D. So therefore, government is taking this action to sort of alleviate the suffering of Ghanaians.
Okay,
and once that is done, I think that it will give some kind of confidence and hope in the system.
Dr. Felix Nyako, thank you for joining us. Isaac, the issue about confidence in the economy, is that reflected in the Fitch ratings?
Well, so Fitch is giving some 3 warnings here. They are saying that factors which could individually or collectively lead to the negative ratings action or downgrade. So they are giving us some warning. They say if Ghana fails to make scheduled coupon or maturity periods on Ghana's foreign currency bonds within the grace period, will lead to another downgrade. So if we fail to honor coupons for our foreign bonds or loans, then they are going to issue another downgrade for us. Or the partially guaranteed note could be downgraded depending on the evolution of the debt restructuring. Now, mind you, government has been able to reach some agreement with some, local creditors who are holding our bonds. But just like we're saying, if you look at the bonds maturing in 2023, we can count, or the value is around 31 billion Ghana cedis that we're talking about. And just since March, I think a week or two ago, about 4.2 billion of these bonds matured. That's the principal. We're not even talking about coupons or interest. Then on the 20th of this same month, 3.4 billion of bonds will mature again. So if you add the 3.4 to the 4.2, we are looking about 7.6 billion cedis of bonds maturing. That's the principal. We're not talking about coupon payments. We're not talking about even interest. So if you add this two and you look at just February alone, government has a lot of debt obligations to make. So as a result of this, we decided to look to the 2023 budget. And we saw that 2023, the total revenue that government will be generating plus grants will be 143.96 billion cedis. Now, blessed, out of this, if you look at domestic debt obligation for 2023 alone, if you are just using bonds maturing in 2023, just like I said, is 31 billion. And then interest payment on all other loans is also 31 billion. That's for just domestic. If you add these two, plus compensation that will make to employees, salaries, wages, 44 billion. If you add these 3 line items that I'm talking about, it's around 107 billion cedis. So you're a country, you are raising 143, but you are using 107 billion to service debt and pay your workers. Then it means you are just left with 35 billion cedis to survive on as a country. We ask a very big question. Can Ghana really survive on 35 billion cedis for 1 year? We can't do that because capital expenditure alone is around 25 billion cedis. We're talking about government flagship program, including free SHS and other programs. It's around 9 billion cedis. So can we survive on 35 billion cedis? The question, the answer is no. Right. That is why government is making sure and is doing all it can to make sure that it restructure its debt levels to a certain percentage or a certain level so that they can have that fiscal space to breathe. So the warning is that if you fail to honor your coupon payments on your external debt, Fitch is saying, I will downgrade you again.
Isaac, thank you. Let's move on now. Attorney General and Minister for Justice Godfrey Yeboah-Dame is defending his decision to obviously ask the Auditor General, Johnson Ikeyama-Asiedu, to unpublish his latest special report on COVID-19 following damning revelations in that document. Society groups, including the opposition NDC, have been on the neck of the Auditor General and the Audit Service to issue a surcharge on individuals found culpable, including the Center for Democratic Development, which took the Attorney General on for interfering in the work of the Auditor General. But in what appears to be his response, the Attorney General says his points are well within the framework of the law. And of course, he's released a statement to that effect, pointing to the fact that his attention has been drawn to a number of happenings, but he is pointing to reasons why he believes this is the reason why he's issued that note to the Auditor General. Point 1 talks about the fact that, contrary to that's the strange view of CDD as he's pointing to, the letter and the spirit of the laws governing the work of the Auditor General make him part of the audit service, and therefore, as a regular member of the public services of Ghana, to whom the Attorney General can give advice pursuant to his mandate under Article 88 of the Constitution, is part of the reasons why he's done what he did. Of course, he continues to point out that Article 189(2) of the Constitution provides an idea when it stipulates that the appointment of officers and other employees in the audit service, other than the Auditor General, shall be made by the Audit Service Board acting in consultation with the Public Services Commission. And for the Attorney General, this provision deals with the appointment of officers and all employees of the audit service, including the Auditor General himself, and clearly provides that, with the exception of the Auditor General, all have, everyone there have to be appointed by the Audit Service Board acting in consultation with the Public Services Commission. Now, with clear provisions in Article 1892, a contention, of course, is being made that the Auditor General is not part of the audit service or a member of the Public Services Commission. And for the Auditor General, that is a pointless and absurd point to be making. He goes ahead to say that the Audit Service Act 2000, Act 584, lays the issue to rest when it lists the Auditor General as the first member of the audit service in these terms, that the members of the audit service shall include the Auditor General and other persons employed by the service. So it's part of the reasons why the Auditor General is raising these concerns in that document. Now, the Ghana Education Service is calling on parents to be on high alert as it announces the placement of students in various schools across the country. The GES says they have nothing to do with such persons who will demand or pay monies to facilitate placement into the schools, and wants parents to report such persons to the police. Addressing a news conference a while ago, Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Dr. Eric Nkansa, indicated that they have strengthened their internal controls, beefing them with third-party institutions that will monitor their systems to ensure there is no abuse.
Caution parents and guardians to be on the alert for unscrupulous individuals who may approach them to pay any amount of money for the placement of the awards. Such persons are to be reported immediately to the police and to the GES, or possibly to the TVET service for us to pick it up. We are also advising heads of all schools to stick to their approved prospectus. On the other hand, we also urge parents to cooperate with the school authorities during and after the admission process. Quite a number of things have been done, but we can't make all of them public. And most of the things that we have done had to do with strengthening our internal controls. And so some of it had to do with even touching the system itself, checking the infrastructure that delivers this whole process. And we have indeed gotten other people, third-party agencies, to even double-check the integrity of the system, and have improved the process flow, almost everything that had to be done internally to ensure that the controls are robust have been done. So we are hoping, and that is why this particular press briefing is equally important, because that is also part of the sensitization process. On this note, may I take the opportunity to announce that the 2023 Computerized School Selection and Placement System, CSSPS, for senior high schools and TVET schools site will be going live any moment from this minute.
Well, the GES Director General has also been giving some statistics about the placement.
As has always been the norm, the service took delivery of the results data and began preparing for the placement. Out of the 547,000 329 registered candidates, 538,399 candidates qualified to be placed. So far, a total of 372,780, representing 69.24% of the qualified students have been automatically placed in at least one of their choices. However, 165,601 candidates representing 30.76%, could not be matched with any of their choices. All such students are therefore to do self-placement to select from the available schools. Per the calendar for 2023, the academic calendar for 2023, the first-year students are to report to school on February 20, 2023. So from next week, February 20, students can report to schools for registration and possible orientation for academic work to commence on February 27.
Okay, let's bring in Yao Pokumensa, his Deputy Spokesperson at the Ministry of Education. And thank you, sir, for joining us here in studio. Over 300,000 students likely to be placed. Are we sure that we'll even get placement for all of them?
Yeah, definitely. The 300, these are not likely to be placed. These are people who have received the automatic placement. So the other number, which is the 160,000 plus, will do a self-placement. So that is how the trend goes. Looking at or judging from the aggregate and the raw score, as well as the choice of schooling program and accommodation status, which influence the automatic placement. So the over 300,000 do have the automatic placement, one of the 6 schools that they chose. That is where they've been placed as we speak.
So 165,000 plus for self-placement, is that what's happening?
Yeah, so those individuals will have the opportunity. You know what, within the secondary education space, the Ghana Education Service or the Ministry of Education can't choose a school for you. So it's up to you for you to make your own choice. So therefore, even those who could not get any of their 6 choices, then will have the opportunity to select their own school. When you go onto the portal, the available schools, plus your desired program and the accommodation status that you prefer, you look into the system and you choose a school that fits into what you want.
Okay, but then for this 165,000 who are supposed to do the self-placement, how are they supposed to approach this process? Do you have any clear guideline process by which they could be asking for the self-placement?
Yeah, exactly. There is a clear guidelines. Definitely, if you listen to the Director General carefully in the press briefing, that was indicated as part of the process, where if you want a self-placement mechanism, you go through to be able to place yourself. And it's not stressful. It's not stressful in the sense that when you log onto the portal,
so they still have to make use of the portal.
Yeah, definitely.
Make use of that online process.
Definitely.
But just that it's as though you're going through the process again.
Yeah, you have to go through the process again. Okay. So with the self-placement, it comes with the region, your residential preference, the school is there, program of choice. Then once you go through this, then you click on submit, then it will go through. So as and when candidates do a self-placement for a particular school, when that particular school is full, then it goes off from the portal.
Okay. Now there's a warning also coming through from the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, talking about persons, some unscrupulous individuals who may be within your ranks and maybe trying to abuse the process by taking money for placement. How are you, first of all, sanitizing the system?
Yeah, as the Director General rightly said, we've improved the internal mechanism, and the security-wise of the system now is robust. There is a third party that does the auditing and look at the integrity of the whole process to ascertain if indeed it meets the best of time and what we seek for. And as part of the protocols, we are able to strengthen the base. So that is a firm assurance. And again, if you've studied this year's interaction, right from the verification process before the results were released, and even on to today when the eventual automatic placement came, we've been educating the public as to what you need to do and what you don't have to do. So for example, now we've been preaching and telling people through your medium that we should make use of the regional resolution centers. Definitely when people see where people are crowded, especially when people are in need of a particular item, that is where people want to take advantage of it and want to do whatever they want. And this time we are cautioning the public, anybody who approaches you to take any or demand for anything, what you have to do is you need to report that individual to the law enforcement agency for the law to take its course. But again, if you can't approach any security officer, the officials of the Ghana Education Service are there for you to report to. And as the Director General said, the individual who is paying and the one who is receiving are all causing the same criminal offense. So therefore, we need to be mindful. Our people within the regional outfit are well trained and ready to receive any individual who comes to them for any assistance. And let me repeat this and emphasize on it. There is nothing like a payment or any sort to any individual when you are seeking for any answers to a question that you may pose out. We need to take that caution very seriously. And yes, we've had an internal mechanism which has been strengthened, but the cooperation of parents and candidates are very important.
But you see, the point is some of the parents may not be aware of the processes as you're explaining, or as you may be aware. Well, you're working at the ministry, so you know a lot more about the process. But there are parents out there who may not be aware of the process, so anyone offering help, they jump onto that. How are you decentralizing the help? Maybe if you're going to set up units at your various outfits, how do you intend to do that so that at least information is closer and closer to the parents and that they can easily get access to, whoever it is that will solve their problem?
Yeah, as I indicated, every region has got a regional resolution center. Okay. Every region has got a regional resolution center. And at these resolution centers, what is important that you need to do is just to approach the officers there. Put out your grievance or whatever answer that you seek for.
All regions?
Every region.
Okay, right.
So every regional education office do have these officials who are waiting, arms open, waiting for any individual who will approach them for anything that you want us to address for you. And this year, those who will want to come at the national resolution center, that is the NAT Hall.
Oh, you're still using that again this year?
But it's
right. I thought because you're going to be using the regional centers.
No,
yeah. Hold on the national one.
We do have the regional outfit, but again, it's important we also have that national outfit one. That collate what comes from the regional outfit as a bulk item and look at it individually based on how they come in. But when you visit the officials from our outfit are well identified.
Okay.
So they are well identified. Yes, they are well identified. Yours is to approach those who are well identified, put out your grievances to them so that you wouldn't have any third party or anybody coming from outside to take you through a certain
process. You know how those Goro people behave. They sometimes come closer asking, well, madam, can I help you and all of that. Are you clearing them entirely off the center, or you are allowing them to lurk around and
no, we wouldn't know who is a Goro boy.
Right.
Because we don't have any Goro boy at the Ministry of Education or the Ghana Education Service or the Ghana TVET Service. There is nobody with that description.
But they will develop, you know that.
Definitely. That is why it is important that when you suspect any individual, yours is to approach our officials and inform them that this person I suspect is not one of you. Right. So what do we do? Quickly, and let me tell out those Goro boys that you are referring to. So we do have undercover security officers as part of the whole process.
Oh. Okay.
Yes. So feel free. I want the public to feel free. Both at the regional outfit and the national outfit. Feel free. Just approach them when you suspect an individual who is not part of the formal system. just report the person and the security people will take it.
Wow. So you are deploying undercover security?
Oh, definitely, it's important.
So there'll be, well, I don't intend to put your strategy out there. I'm not sure they'll be able to identify those security
Yes,
persons.
you wouldn't be able to identify.
So when you deploy these undercover security people, they move around to check what exactly?
Yeah, what we need to understand is they are part of the system. So you wouldn't know. If I'm an undercover agent, you wouldn't know. Right. So they are part of it to help maintain the status that we want, and their presence, apart from men in uniform, their presence gives a certain bite and the seriousness of the whole process that we are looking for. And it's important that we do notice that when some of these security officers are around, people are well saved and secured to be able to engage with officialdom and even have that courage to report any individual who is not wanted within that space. So we are vigilant and we want to help maintain the integrity of the system. So that is why the internal mechanism is important. The security agencies are involved in all this process. And again, the emphasis is on the people who are the receiving end, i.e. the parents plus the candidates themselves. So we all need to cooperate. You've given us the platform to be able to educate the public on what they need to do and what they shouldn't do. For example, with a self-placement, you don't leave it out to the cafe attendant to be doing it for you. Right. As a parent, just spend 5 or 10 minutes with your child. Go to the cafe attendant. Look through what is available. Look through the program that is available, the accommodation status. Make your own choice rather than leaving it out to them. If you leave it out to them, they will do the choice and you come back later complaining that I didn't select this, this is not what I want, so you need to change this for me, etc. We don't want that to happen. So that is why we are bringing the communication to the doorstep of the parents. And we expect that they do cooperate with us so that we can have a smooth system.
Okay, I'm interested in exploring this, but how about the headmasters, those in charge of the senior high schools? There's this tendency by the heads to refuse admission. I don't know if that's the terminology for it, but sometimes you're placed and you're told, well, the facility, we don't have space here, so you'd have to do a self-placement or another type of posting. How are you dealing with that this year?
No, that hasn't come to our attention yet. And a student who is rightly placed in a school, no school authority will drive that individual away. Now, there is a check mechanism. The person placed, printing out the placement form to the school do have the opportunity to see from the portal, indeed, if this individual has been placed in my school. It appears for the school authorities to see. So the school authorities know the people, the number of students who are coming to them, the candidate index number, the name plus the program and the accommodation status. So once you walk in there, you present that document to them, the school authorities then look through their master list and they will find your name in there. So nobody will drive anybody away.
But I'm asking the question because of the allowance for protocols. How are you going about that? I mean, just supposing that to what you've just said.
The aspect of the protocol, and I believe you all know how the system pertains, the school do have the opportunity to do their own protocol. Right. So therefore, the school knows its number. So whilst
there's a quota for them.
Yeah, definitely, based on the declared vacancies to the Ghana Education Service. So that is the number that will have to be looked at, where you take all stakeholders' interest as part of the whole process. So they do know, and they know what to do.
So the headmaster or the head of the institution must give an accurate number.
Yeah, definitely, they do report.
Of what the vacancy is.
They do report, and we have no doubt in our minds that they will be reporting wrong figures. They do report every year. We do take vacancies in there. And even not they alone declaring, but staff from our outfit also go there to do inspection, to do a head count of number of students in there, accommodation, the classroom accommodation that they do have, number of accommodation facilities for boarding. The schools will do their part. The Ghana Education Service outfit will also do their part. Staff from the Ministry of Education also go there to also verify and validate all these figures. So therefore, there is that checks and balances, and there cannot be an over-declaration so that you can get more numbers. That is not what pertains within the education space.
And just before this placement was released, we know that there was an investigative piece that was put out there. Has the ministry learnt its lessons, and how are you improving from there?
Yes, the public, it's ongoing debate within the public space about the perception or the seeming rumor as to somebody taking money, whatever. But it's important that when we hear some of these perceptions and discussion, we pick pieces and what people are suggesting and what people are writing to us. We put all of them on the table. Every year you see an improvement in the system. And that is, we cannot have a perfect system. But again, we need to work hard to get to perfection. That is basically what we are doing. So every year there is a new element which is introduced. And significantly, this year also is not an exception. We do have an improvement in our system. As the Director General rightly said, a third party looking at and assessing the integrity of the whole system before the release of the automatic placement. As I indicated to you, we are not alone. The security forces are with us. The security agencies are with us to ensure that we do have a functional system. And that is what is important. So that this should give breathing space to parents. But again, parents, we still are telling parents and candidates to be mindful of people who do not come from our quarters and will be coming to them, telling them that I can promise you or do this for you, where that cannot happen. So they should be mindful of that and cooperate with us so that we can have a smooth and a functional and effective system.
Okay, let's wrap up on the academic calendar itself that you're running for this academic year. There are some changes from the basic right to the senior high school just to readjust and to move away from the pre-COVID era, which obviously disrupted the normal academic calendar. What's going to change now? Are we going to see a double track or a mainstream? How are you dealing with the problem so we get to the normal level?
We've moved from double tracking system to now a transitional calendar. And you know, when the double track started, you have 1 year group, that's the first year, with 2 different batches. Whilst one is in school, the other is also in the house. Now we do have 1 cohort in school at a particular time. So we've moved from the double tracking system to now a transitional calendar. And all these are preparations that we are doing towards the ability to achieve and take that from there and revert back to our normal calendar. We never wait for COVID, and it becomes a necessary evil. It came, therefore, authorities needed to sit and strategize effectively to be able to
So what you're doing is that, are you overrunning the system to catch up, or you're shortening the process so that everything will start afresh?
No, we can't shorten the system. We can't overrun the system as well. There are a number of specific contact hours that students are required to have face-to-face or interaction with their teachers. And we are mindful of all these contact hours. And it's something that the Minister of Education, Dr. Osio, wouldn't want to breach, not even one. So therefore, we can't cheat the system or in whether up or down. No, that is not the case. You know, previously we were going, if you calculate where you have 6 months of school period and 6 months where we come home. Now we have all year running for the school. But what is important is that even if you divide it into 2, nobody should be shortchanged in terms of the contact hours which are needed for effective teaching and learning. So we are not doing any or designing the calendar to shortchange the system. But again, we need to work very hard to get to the normal system that we are all seeking for. And therefore, we require sacrifices. And we know the workload on our teachers. We know the workload on the schools. So that is why you see this new calendar in the system. So it's part of mechanism to ensure that we are able to achieve the normal calendar that we seek for.
Okay, then. We need to go. Any message for our parents out there?
Yeah, what I want to tell parents is that the placement is out, automatic placement is out. Wherever your ward or child was placed, please straight away do as the honors by printing out, move straight to the school, and academic work starts. So from now up to 27th, school is in processed.
Okay.
It's in progress.
Oh, so it's just starting?
Yes. On the 20th, straight away, you go to the school to enroll. Officials are there ready to receive you. Immediately you go in there, present your credentials to them. They will take you through the process and tell you what you need to do again. And we must still emphasize, free SHS is still ongoing.
I was just about asking.
Nobody is, you don't pay anything to access secondary education in this country. So we expect that nobody should come and tell us that I didn't have this money for this payment. That is why I was unable to access school. There is nothing like payment of anything in any school in Ghana.
Free is free.
Free is free.
Okay.
Go in there, receive education, and become the better person that we seek for the progress of Mother Ghana.
Okay, so it's free. We're taking that from you.
But you know,
we're taking that from you. Thank you, Nanaya, for joining us. You're still with us here on The Pulse. When we get back, we'll take you to Parliament. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Former Pro-East MP and former Minister for Power, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, says he will sue the Roads Minister and the Ghana Highways Authority if they do not immediately fix the Central Corridor roads. This road goes through the Atebu-Yeji and it's a major link road from the southern parts of Ghana to the north. Dr. Kwabena Donkor says it appears the poor states and two institutions are compromising to endanger lives of road users on what he says is a major corridor.
Ghana Highway Authority and the Ministry for Roads and Highways are endangering the lives of the people of that corridor. Hitherto, you could go to Ejura from Yeji under 2 hours. Today, vehicles are taking 3 to 4 hours because of the craters. Vehicles on that road no longer drive on the left or on the right. They drive where the potholes are not. But the biggest danger to our safety, to public safety, is the state of the road. We are not talking about a rural road. We are not talking about an untarred road. We are talking about a major corridor road, the Central Corridor Road. If you're going to the north from Ashanti, the shortest route is through Yeji. So there is major economic benefit in putting the road to good condition. The Ghana Highways Authority is conspiring to turn this road, this first-class road, into a death trap. The people can no longer take this. We will consider going to court because we have a right to safety. We'll consider going to court to compel Highway Authority to do what the law has set them up to do if this road is not given the needed attention. This is the major press briefing on this. And for today, I appeal to Highways Authority, I appeal to the Ministry of Roads and Highways. And I'm bringing in the Ministry of even National Security because the road has security implications. I am pleading that we will take the Highways Authority to court.
Let's stay on the House because Parliament has passed into law the National Vaccine Institute Bill into law. The institute is expected to equip the country in terms of research and vaccine production. At the height of COVID-19, it became a difficult venture getting vaccines, prompting government to propose the setting up of this institution. Indeed, the audit of the COVID-19 expenditure shows that government paid more than $120 million to UNICEF for vaccines, but that has not been delivered. Chairperson of the Health Committee, Dr. Nana Eyiwe-Friye, says the country is now ready to produce vaccines locally.
Bill sets the tone for the country to engage into the business of vaccine production, vaccine development, vaccine research. That's what the bill is about. And therefore, what I said is that once it's passed, it set the tone for the nation to go into the business of vaccine. Yes, an institute is being set up according to the law. And that institute, respectfully, will be under the Ministry of Health.
And the minority, however, say they keep opposed to the idea in principle, but will not tolerate importing finished goods into the country and only packaging them here. Kwabena Donkor is minority spokesperson on health.
In principle, I have absolutely nothing against it, to the extent that the object of the act will be obeyed, because the object says that we are going to research, do development, and also do the manufacturing of the vaccines in the country. I do not want a situation where we will be resorting to what they call fill and finish, just packaging the vaccines in the country. I don't think that that is the intent of the bill that we have just passed into law. And I believe that if we had something of that nature in this country, the situation where, as a government, we'll be paying amount more than $120 million US into another country where we don't even get the vaccines, we don't even get our monies back, I believe that this law may be able to prevent such a situation. And even before the passage of the law, the president allocated about 25 million Ghana cedis to the committee that the president constituted. Now that the law has been passed, we also look into how that money has been expended. That is also very, very important.
And stakeholders in the mining sector in the Upper West region have expressed some concerns about the continuous prospecting of gold by Azumah Resources Limited in the region. The company for 17 years has been prospecting for gold in the region. The stakeholders are of the opinion that the company is mining gold rather than has actually degraded most of the arable lands, depriving them of their livelihoods. As a result of that, they always have been experiencing some tension between the local mining community and those within the area. There's more in the following report.
Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Salih sets the tone for the meeting.
We will not spare any effort at ensuring that Azumah releases a portion of its concession to our communities. However, the needed processes must be followed before we allow you to do mining. You must have your mining license. And let me state that what we will not tolerate in the region is illegal mining. That I want to make very clear, that under no circumstance shall we allow illegal mining in the Upper West region. It will not happen.
This is the first dialogue between stakeholders in the mining sector and Azumah Resources Limited since the latter started prospecting for gold in the Upper West region 17 years ago. Senior Communications Relations Officer of Azumah Resources Limited, Solomon Derry, revealed that since 2006, the company has expended $6 million in local content that includes social corporate responsibility, local business, and employment. They have also ceded 25% of its concession to the Mineral Commission for community mining.
So these were areas Azumah Resources had expended $2 million drilling, taking soil samples to define gold, the deposits. And we're able to define about 700,000 ounces of gold there. At the market value of $130 million US. So one can imagine the commitment of Azumah Resources to ensuring that we have this policy succeed, and also to help our brothers who are also trying to earn a living.
The stakeholders, comprising of traditional and opinion leaders, parliamentarians, district chief executives, assembly members, and community miners, however, disagreed with most of the submissions of Azuma Resources Limited and penciled some concerns from their communities they want addressed.
Azuma should also show us the physical boundaries of their concession after the mandatory shedding off. Local content. I don't know about the Bulelena and Mawena, but I'm not aware of a single person within the operational area in the West East who is employed by Azuma.
What reparation package do they have? The people want to know, because yes, probably a chief may benefit, probably a landowner may benefit, yes, an assembly will benefit. But the community, the people as a whole, what reparation package do you have for them? They want to be very, very clear. I mean, these are the circumstances under which the people will be prepared to cooperate with you.
At some point, it became emotional and they expressed their inner feelings and anger about what they called dishonesty and deceit on the activities of Azuma Resources Limited in prospecting for gold. You only come with empty talk. You selected 12 of our pupils to sponsor their education and ended up giving each 3 exercise books and a pencil. You have not given a single furniture to any of our schools. You only come around and gather our elders to lie to them. There is also the issue of constant harassment and brutalities visited on the people by the military in the name of protecting concession of Azuma Resources Limited.
There are times as early as 4 a.m. you see military men in Manwe without any provocation. They beat up people, seize motorbikes, and then bring down houses. I don't know why Manwe itself is not a mining community. So if you want to deal with galamseyers, you don't go to the town itself. There was a day someone was going to the farm. He was seen and perceived to be going to Galamsey site. He was beaten and his motor taken away.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam. Wow.
And pre-primary education gets a major boost as President Akufo-Addo has sought for an ultra-modern ICT center, a kindergarten school in the Kwabena area. According to the government, the project will transform early child education in the country as it plans to construct more technology-based classrooms. In the meantime, government is giving its assurance that educational projects will not be truncated as the country navigates the current harsh economic season. Michael Ashali now reports.
Letter C. Let me look for letter C.
Children and teachers of Kwabena Kindergarten MA Basic School in their newly built state-of-the-art ICT-empowered model classroom.
Okay, give me one finger. One, again. One.
A play-based classroom kindergarten developed by the BSW Group, the first of its kind in the country.
So my name is Alona Datenko-Volodina and I'm the General Manager of CADEUS, which is Educational Technology Division of BSW Group, which actually executed all the reconstruction and the refurbishment of this wonderful facility.
According to Aliona, the model allows children to be seamlessly introduced to ICT.
When it's play-based, it's center-based. There is a lot of space that children can actually play. We're not encouraging them to sit at the desks. We want them to be active. We want them to work with their hands. We want them to create, to do something. So technology, it's actually only one of the stations that you see in the classroom. You have the reading corner, you have the tangibles corner, you have the play corner, you have the touch screens. So when we designed the classrooms, we were thinking about several things. First of all, the number of kids in the class. And we know that the number can reach up to 70 children. So we had to bring, for example, the projector and the board in order for the teacher to be able to work with the whole classroom. Then we created centers in order for the teacher to be able to split the groups into the smaller groups, to assign them some task, either it's with technology or with some resources, and then they can do some activities throughout the day. Then can change. So basically, throughout the day, children have access to different stations and different opportunities. And what it allows them, it allows us to expand the opportunities in their learning. It allows them to develop different skills and basically develop holistically.
However, she fears internet connectivity and electricity supply may pose a threat to the project.
There are several things that we were struggling with. As you know, that ICT requires electricity and connectivity, and for us it was important to select and to find the resources and to bring you the solutions that can be independent of connectivity, that all children, despite of where they're located, because the project was in 6 regions, will be able to access technology and the solutions. So there are things that we hope the government of Ghana will improve, and I've seen this already throughout the years, that it's getting better and better, but as you probably know, it's a very long road. From our side, we'll do all possible to ensure that all the teachers, even in the most remote areas.
At the sword-cutting ceremony, Education Minister Dr. Yao Osei Edutum believes the project, if expanded, will transform pre-primary education in the country.
Today we have a wonderful opportunity of seeing one that has been completed in Greater Accra. I'm so excited to understand that President is not interested in STEM education from secondary. He's interested in STEM education starting from kindergarten. He wants to create...
He gave the government assurance that educational projects will continue unabated even under harsh economic conditions.
In the midst of these economic challenges, we have 7 colleges, technical colleges under construction now. We are opening 7 STEM high schools in Ghana now. We have kindergartens that are being operationalized with ICT. There are 110 of them under construction throughout this country.
On his part, President Akufo-Addo charged the various assemblies to take care of the new classroom blocks that will be built under the project.
Help the management and teachers of this newly constructed kindergarten block will ensure the best maintenance practices are put in place so that this school is well utilized and maintained for the benefit of our students.
For the students, they beam with smiles as they start their new journey to computer literacy. For Joy News, Michael Ashali.
Okay, give me one finger. One, again.
Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyomarkin says government must urgently make the diagnosis and treatment of hepatitis B free through the National Health Insurance Scheme. Delivering a statement on the disease in Parliament, Afenyomarkin explained that this treatable disease is killing people mainly because of the cost of treatment. He urged government to cover the treatment for hepatitis B, just as it is done for HIV.
As the leading cause of liver cancer worldwide, viral hepatitis B elimination could greatly reduce the rate of liver cancer death if only we can find it and treat millions of people who are unaware they are living with the condition. Mr. Speaker, I conclude by saying that with the World Hepatitis B Day approaching somewhere in July, government should make testing, vaccination, and treatment accessible to the communities to save lives. This can be done through decentralization of the services, to make implementation of the community-based hepatitis B more effective. It is vital that the testing, diagnosis, vaccination, and treatment of hepatitis B should be enrolled onto the National Health Insurance Scheme, just as it is done for those living with TB and HIV. So, Speaker, HIV patients get the antiretroviral drugs free of charge. Unfortunately, hepatitis B patients who also rely on this same medication have to buy. If we do this, it will reduce the morbidity and mortality in our country to the barest minimum.
Okay, let's look elsewhere now, because this week, Germany, there's some focus on the yearly Munich Security Conference, which will be taking place between the 17th and 19th of February. A lot is at stake for this evening, as so much has changed since last year with Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which reshapes international relations. This war will take center stage at that conference, but world powers are also set to discuss ways to prevent global insecurity by addressing other conflicts, as well as pressing issues such as climate change and global inequality. Well, so let's get to it. This year again, Russia's war against Ukraine will take center stage. If you're with us, what's going to be the focus of this conference?
Well, exactly. The Munich Security Conference aims at preventing conflict through dialogue between international actors. And last year, with Russia's war against Ukraine, launched merely days after that meeting. This shows the limits of those exchanges when on the other side there's no dialogue possible anymore. So it's been a very tough year for the conference, but the dialogue continues, and it's going to be interesting to see exchanges of views, for example, on the delivery of fighter jets to Ukraine, something that Ukraine is really calling its allies to do. It's their main request to fight against the Russian aggressor. So we know that the head of the Munich Security Conference, Christoph Heusgen, he's very favorable to that delivery of fighter jets. But that's something that the UK and France haven't put off the table, but that Germany, for example, is quite reluctant to do so. That's going to be interesting to discuss that issue. The point is really to bring governments, experts, businesses together to discuss global security and identify future threats and how to handle them. So for that, we'll very much see discussions on rethinking how European defense ought to work, how to reinvent the security order, with Germany's representatives numerous times talking about a turning point in Europe's history, and perhaps compared to last year when we saw the Ukrainian delegation warning against the imminence of the war, well, this time there is an acute awareness of the need to rethink European defense and the need to cement the alliances within NATO as well in order to do so.
Now, we'll be sending its former foreign minister to that conference. US's Vice President Kamala Harris will also be there. Do we expect any bilateral discussions at the time when, of course, diplomatic relations between US and China are quite tense?
Absolutely. It's a time to redefine Europe's and US's relationship with China. There are two aspects that are going to be discussed. Undoubtedly, that's the economic one, with a strong dependency from Germany towards China, which has been criticized by some because of the national security challenges that some trades with China pose. There was, for example, a few months ago when parts of a port terminal here in Germany were sold to a state-affiliated Chinese company. This prompted fears that Germany was rendering itself too dependent on the Chinese industry. And of course, the recent diplomatic tensions are bound to be discussed between China and the US, but also, again, in light of Russia's current aggression towards Ukraine, there will be much to talk about on the Chinese-Russian partnership, with China continuing to deliver essential materials to Russia. So a lot to be discussed on the relations between China and the rest of the world.
Issues will be at stake as well, not least global inequalities and climate change as well. Tell us more about that.
Yes, and global security cannot be addressed without talking about what causes this insecurity, those instabilities in the world. And for example, when it comes to cybersecurity, there will be discussions during the conference on disinformation, how to tackle it, how to promote trustworthy information instead, also how to regulate tech markets, how to create a safe digital space. And when it comes to another topic, to climate change, where we see discussions on how to keep the commitments already taken on green energy despite the ongoing energy security crisis. So quite a lot to cover during those 3 days of conference.
After the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria, over 80 countries have sent search and rescue teams to aid Turkey. Every day that passes, of course, it reduces the chances of finding more survivors. Therefore, these search operators no longer have priority. Given the time that has passed, it is now important, obviously, to help the affected populations. I guess this is the right time to also discuss that.
Well, Germany is home to two of the biggest diasporas. It's home to almost 3 million people of Turkish origin and to almost 1 million Syrian nationals. And both diasporas have been affected by the earthquake. Many people lost friends, lost relatives in the disaster. So the German government said it wanted to issue temporary visas for the victims as an emergency aid without bureaucracy, but with regular visas being issued quickly and which would be valid for 3 months. And the problem with that is that in order to issue a visa, well, people have to have their ID documents at hand, and thousands of them, well, they have lost those papers in the rubble, and they also would have to travel to German embassies, which was already a complicated thing for Syrians to do before the earthquake. But the Foreign Affairs Ministry has increased its workforce to respond to the situation on the ground.
Help Syria. Syria has been greatly hindered by the political situation, with help barely reaching the border regions held by opponents to the Assad regime. How is the situation also on the ground?
For days following the earthquake, the Syrian NGOs, the Syrian civil defense as well in those regions have begged the international community to send search and rescue teams. But then as it became clear that there would be no survivors left in the rubble, those pleas, they transformed into incomprehension, into anger, with many Syrians saying that they've been left alone to face that disaster, but with only one border crossing open between Turkey and Syria. It was difficult for humanitarians to reach the ground to bring aid to Syria's worst affected regions, which are held by opponents to Bashar al-Assad's regime or by jihadists. This has proven more difficult. Now it looks like 2 more border crossings will be open. The UN announced an emergency response fund of 25 million euros being sent to Syria. And on the German side, Germany is Syria's second largest donor when it comes to humanitarian assistance. Last year it gave over 100 million euros to its partners on the ground, and it has announced that this figure has been increased by 26 million for the people affected by the earthquake in northwestern Syria.
Emmanuel Chase with our partners DW. The overlord of Mamprugu has of course supervised the enskinment of retired educationists as the new chief of the Boku traditional area. The new chief, Nasedu Bagri Kulga II, was enskinned at the Naligu community amidst a heavy security presence and attempts by the Regional Security Council to stop it from taking place. In his address, the new chief called on the people to end all hostilities and embrace peace and ensure socio-economic progress and development.
The enskinment was done Thursday morning by the king of the Mamprugu traditional area, of which Boko is said to be part, now Bohago Abdullahi Mahamud Sheriga, together with his royal court members. It started with the arrival of the families and sympathizers of the 4 Mamprugu Gate in Boko. Soon, scores of people in around Nalirgu began to gather at the palace to witness the historic enskinment of a Boko Naba by a Mamprugu overlord after nearly 40 years. However, while the processes were ongoing, members of the Northeast Regional Security Council, led by the Regional Minister Yidana Zakari, arrived at the palace in the company of heavily armed security forces. The presence of the Regional Minister briefly halted the process as the crowd erupted in opposition against his presence and demanded that he leave the place. After a brief opposition from the crowd, Mr. Yidana, following the intervention of the palace elders, was allowed to engage the overlord in a short private conversation. Whilst on his way out after the meeting with the overlord, the crowd began to hoot at him and his delegation. A palace elder later told JoyNews that the minister had come to accompany the overlord to Accra upon the invitation of President Nana Akufo-Addo. The elder added that the overlord turned down the invitation and told the minister it was too late to stop the enskinment. The enskinment processes then resumed and soon ended with the announcement of Na Seydou Abagari with a chieftaincy titled Na Akuluga II as the new chief of the Boko Paramount Skin. Speaking to JoyNews, some of the residents believe this enskinment will ensure the return of peace in Boko.
The ban has never solved any problem.
gangs have killed many people. We have seen many deaths, we have seen many maiming, we have seen many properties and lives destroyed. It has to stop. The youth, I am a young man and I feel very bad. Every time I see pictures of Wisasi youth being killed, as somebody who is a parent, I feel very much aggrieved. I am not happy.
There is nothing like a Supreme Court ruling. So indeed, what the Nigeria has done today is the best thing to do. Indeed, this is a stepping stone to a resolution of the conflict or crisis in Boku. I would want to entreat politicians to respect the chieftaincy institution. So the government should rather pay attention or concentrate on how to ensure that lives and property are not lost there. But as for taking the chief home, in fact, the chief will soon be home. There is nobody on earth that will be able to stop the legitimate Boku Naba from getting to Boku.
I expect everything to return to normal as usual. We've had it before during the era of Dr. Kwabena Donkor, Ghana's first president. He created this thing in the first place. But after the overthrow of Nkrumah in 1966, the then Nayiri, the 30th king of Mampuru, na Bongo Adam Badimso, and skin na Tampuru Adam Zanjo as the 14th Boku Naba. And you can go and check the history. Boku returned to normalcy. Everything was moving on smoothly until the demise of the 14th Boku Naba, na Tampuru Adam Zanjo, before we had what we were having. So we are optimistic that everything will return to normalcy after this experience.
So everybody in Mampuru, Upper East, in North East, we are happy to see such a thing. For Nayiri to skin Boku Naba, because all that place is for Yawa.
The new chief is a popular retired educationist whose grandfather was the 12th Boku Naba. He was unanimously approved by the crowd as they burst into loud cheers amidst drumming and dancing. The new chief, Na Akuluga II, called for an end to all hostilities in Boku.
Finally, the Boku program that has existed for almost half a century has come to a close. And that I wish to thank them very much for their cooperation. The message I have for people of Boku is let's stay in peace. Let's join each other because we are one. There is no alien.
And in most parts of northern Ghana, drought conditions make the cultivation of maize a highly water-dependent crop, an uphill task. As a result, maize yields have been low for many farmers, but some of them seem to have found an alternative crop that gives them relatively higher yields but requires less water, and that's sorghum. This week on Climate Focus, our correspondent Mohammed Nuruddin speaks to some farmers in the Upper West region who have switched to sorghum cultivation.
The best thing about sorghum is that if they purchase it and the proceeds are high, that is why we believe it is better to concentrate on that now that the rains are unpredictable.
Producing the maize is a bit capital intensive, if I should say, because the maize crop needs much fertilizer, unlike the sorghum. And then with the maize, sometimes it will be difficult even getting the market. The sorghum, there is just an available market. And then the price is also very good as compared to that of the maize.
I don't have the figure, but we have thousands that are interested in cultivating sorghum in this municipality. And your question, sorghum is actually a drought-resistant variety.
Fertilizer prices have risen. You can't buy one if you don't have money. And if you can't grow maize without fertilizer, if you do, you will get low yields. However, if you grow sorghum on a fertile land, you will get a high yield.
71-year-old Alhaji Idrisu Dabo leaves his home at 8 a.m. on Thursday
to go to his 10-acre sorghum farm, which is few meters away. The well-sprouted crops were planted 2 months ago. Alhaji Dabo is waiting for another month until the top half of the head has turned brown and the lower portion is no longer green, which are clear signs that it is time to harvest. Shattering will occur if he waits too long to harvest, and Alhaji Dabo will probably lose more seeds as a result than if he had harvested too early. There are no signs of pest, disease, or nutritional deficiencies. The leaves are healthy and the flowers are blossoming.
I believe I lose more money growing maize than sorghum. That is why we stopped cultivating maize and ventured into sorghum. Nothing indicates that the price of sorghum will fall, and the cost of living continues to rise. That is why we are all now cultivating sorghum, which can withstand bad weather.
He visits the farm every day to keep an eye on any challenges and to act, if necessary, to protect his investment.
And since when we started farming sorghum, no one in Chapori has harvested more sorghum than I have.
In the Upper West region of Ghana's Chapori community, there hasn't been any significant rainfall for some time now, but the 71-year-old farmer is delighted with how well his crops are surviving despite the dry weather.
I use sorghum proceeds to pay my children's school fees and to address other issues.
As more intense droughts coincide with the trends of rising temperatures and decreasing rainfall, the more Alhaji Dabo points to the impacts of climate change. Since 2010, Alhaji Dabo, who only grew enough to feed his family and sold the surplus, has shifted to sorghum, a drought-tolerant crop that does not require expensive inputs such as fertilizer to generate good yield.
Because I keep here fast. Hong Kwaka Temosembin, Chana here fast. Chakamana Hong Kwaka dilatatis Kawa Hokonyabena. So come on, Bakola Yako, what out?
Sorghum grows quickly. If you cultivate maize and there are any other weather delays, you will not get anything. You will not get a good yield if you don't apply fertilizer. Sorghum does not require fertilizer. I didn't apply fertilizer on my farm, and some people were even surprised by how well the farm is doing.
Alhaji Dabo says he plants his own sorghum seeds, which he stores for subsequent seasons, a decision he believes is something good farmers should do.
Farmers shouldn't rely on cooperation for their seed needs. Why should they depend on the farm for a living while neglecting to save seeds for later seasons?
Alhaji Dabo's switch to sorghum is part of a wider move by farmers to embrace so-called lost crops from decades past and implement their own locally led adaptations to the unpredictable weather linked to climate change. In the past, Chapori farmers like Alhaji Dabo were able to predict the onset of rains, but that is very difficult now due to shifting weather patterns. Unpredictable rainfall patterns can have a major impact because a large portion of the area's farm output relies on rainfall.
It's not easy to actually get the rains continuously for those periods.
The district, like the rest of northern Ghana, has only one rainy season, which runs from May to September. However, even this pattern is no longer guaranteed, as delays or the early cessation of rains have become the norm in recent years.
I.e., the onset of rainfalls, cessation of the rainfalls, the erratic nature of the rains. When it is time for harvesting, that is the time that they are having a lot of rains, which is affecting their harvests. When it is not supposed to be drought, you see prolonged trends of drought And these are concerns that the farmers have raised. And we understand that as the climate changes, we understand that as vegetation changes, the environmental factors changes, some of these things may happen.
We have an unreliable rainfall pattern. You can't tell when it's raining, when it's not raining. So sometimes during harvest, there's even rain, which sometimes spoil the produce. Then we have torrential rainfalls resulting in erosion. As you all know, last year some roads were cut off. It's just because the rainfalls were too heavy, and so it results in erosion. Then some water bodies our farmers used to rely on to do dry season vegetable production sometimes dry up quickly.
After one of these seasons of only growing maize, he had revenue of about 2,000 cedis, but spent at least 1,500 cedis on import for 1 acre of land. As a result, his profit of roughly 4,500 cedis from 10 acres of farmland was not enough to recoup his initial investment, plus the cost of imports. Sorghum is more profitable per acre compared to the maize he grew years ago. It also provides a more reliable revenue stream.
Those who buy our produce have been in it for a long time, because when we farm, we always get enough money. If they had not been in it, where would they get the money to buy our farm produce?
In 2017, the price earned for 50 kilograms of sorghum was 65 cedis compared to 30 cedis to the same size of maize. But Alhaji Dabo says his profit and loss analysis showed he still came out ahead by growing sorghum, as his losses would have been higher if he had stayed with maize. Since then, the profit margin between these two crops has increased. In 2021, 50 kilograms of sorghum sold at 85 cedis, while 50 kilograms of maize was going at 50 cedis. Sorghum was a game changer for the family. In 2019, it enabled Alhaji Dabo to build a 6-bedroom house in 3 years for only 30,640 cedis.
So, Kamaika, what has some correct? You need to validate in your year.
How was I supposed to construct the house? It's as a result of growing sorghum. I was able to accomplish something with money. If I say it does not assist me, I will not be truthful. I will urge farmers like myself to concentrate on growing sorghum.
Thank 34-year-old Abdallah Amadou Tijani is among the farmers in Chapori who switched to sorghum since 2012. He says the crop is profitable and has a market. Mr. Tijani cultivated 10 acres of sorghum and harvested 100 bags in 2021. It inspired him to double his farm size to 20 acres in 2022.
Last year, I was able to do some 10 acres, and I was able to get 100 bucks. And then this year, based on that, I have actually increased. I have about 20 acres this year, and I'm targeting at least, but I'm targeting in between 250 to 300 bucks.
Like Alhaji Dabo, Mr. Tijani says producing maize was capital intensive and access to available markets was challenging.
Producing the maize is a bit capital intensive, if I should say, because the maize crop needs much fertilizer, unlike the sorghum. And then with the maize, sometimes it will be difficult even getting the market. The sorghum, there is just an available market. And then the price is also very good as compared to that of the maize.
Sorghum's resilience to climate-driven weather impacts was also a factor in his decision to switch crops.
Yeah, and then in recent times we are all aware of the climate change. The climate change actually doesn't affect the sorghum crop much as compared to the maize. The rain pattern is also very deceitful these years as compared to maybe previous years. But with this sorghum plant, it doesn't need much rain. Any little water it gets, it takes it up to maybe some 2 weeks or even more before we get another rain again.
Mr. Tijani does not add fertilizer to his sorghum crops, and he says other farmers in his area do the same and still get good yield.
The man didn't apply fertilizer at all. This particular field, we don't apply fertilizer at all, and then this is how the crops are looking.
According to the Jirapa Municipal Department of Agric, there are 99 women among Chapori's 479 farmers. Record shows nearly every resident grew sorghum in 2022. Sorghum was planted on over 1,000 acres of farmland in the community compared to 500 acres of maize and 200 acres of rice.
85% of our population are involved in farming, and roughly half of these 85% are into sorghum production, because a major staple in the Upper West here, used for porridge, used for TZ. That's the major staple here. So most of our farmers are involved in it. Being it, maybe they may be planting their maize, their rice, their groundnut, their soya, but they still put in the sorghum. And because, as I've mentioned, it's becoming a cash crop, they are moving into this sorghum production that much.
45-year-old Sabrokwe Eunice and 47-year-old Mankana Hawawu are two female growers who farm 3 and 5 acres of land respectively. They are also seeing success with sorghum and earning enough profit to support their families.
Sorghum has a greater price. They used to purchase it and pay us later. However, they now pay us immediately after purchasing the sorghum, which makes us delighted. We can conclude that there are a lot of advantages to cultivating sorghum. So I be maintaining ka atasum yagle. Dance. Sorghum is always more profitable than maize. Unlike the maize, we get paid as soon as we sell sorghum.
Both women have been cultivating sorghum for the past 10 years because of its ability to withstand any type of bad weather.
You definitely get good yield if you cultivate sorghum earlier. However, the rain is not always predictable when maize is being grown, which has an impact on its development. Sorghum porridge is delicious. Additionally, we prepare TZ using it after processing. It has a lot of advantages.
So atasum yagala. Tene mngana. Homamba mangala sabadi. Amal koko anyu. Because tene kwora kabana wado jowa mala koko anyu. Abom namonga sabadi. Komata chaka konkobo.
And because there is ready market for sorghum, most farmers in Chapori sell their grains after harvest through the Ghana Commodity Exchange, the open market, and aggregators who supply to industries. Sorghum and other grass family crops were commonly grown in northern Ghana, while maize was originally a major cereal in the south. Maize benefited from donor support for research, crop promotion, and other enhancement activities over traditional cereals such as sorghum and millet. As a result, maize cultivation extended into northern parts of the country, according to Kenneth Opare Obobi, sorghum reader at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research Institute of the Savannah Agricultural Research Institute.
So I wouldn't say farmers have abandoned, but then there's been a decline in terms of the cultivation in area for some time. And this has to do largely with support from donor partners who have promoted maize and some other crops like rice over the years in terms of research, in terms of promotion of these crops, and it has extended the cultivation area of these crops into the traditional sorghum pearl millets cultivation area. That has played a very key role in ensuring that some of the areas that were cultivated to the traditional cereals we have in the northern part of the country to decline.
In recent years, sorghum cultivation has begun to pick up again after a decline in production from 2010 to 2016. The drought nature of sorghum stems from a number of factors, including its root system. Sorghum leaves can move upright and roll when stressed by water. This reduces the amount of leaf surface area exposed to solar radiation, further reducing the rate of moisture lost by the plant.
It's quite resilient when it comes to drought and heat, which is quite predominant in the northern part of the country. It's one of the main crops that can help solve the food security of the country. And for that matter, its cultivation has to be taken very, very seriously. Food security deals more with food diversity. Once we have diversity in food production, then we can be assured that food security is equally assured. So sorghum production is quite similar to maize, just that when it comes to sorghum, the planting distance is relatively smaller or shorter. Usually we have 75 centimeters by 20 or 25 centimeters, depending on what kind of material you are cultivating. If it's an early maturing material, usually it is much smaller in terms of the distance between plants to plants, compared to one that is relatively medium to late maturing. First and foremost, it has been proven as an industrial raw material, specifically for brewing. Over the years, it's been a brewing ingredient for our local pito, and it's moved on to an industrial stage where it's being used in our local products. Aside that, it serves as a local dish for us. It has the potential to also replace maize as an animal feed, poultry feed specifically. Also, it is mainly for poultry feed or animal feed. And we think with the human to feed competition as far as maize is concerned, sorghum can be a better alternative in terms of serving that purpose of animal feed, to reduce the human and animal competition on over-reliance on maize.
For sorghum, it's mainly carbohydrate based, and it gives the energy that is needed. So, and it's a whole grain, not polished like how we polish rice and all the nutrients are gone and just becomes starchy. The whole grain has carbohydrates and fiber that is good for our system. And the glucose or the energy release, it's released slowly. So it's a very good source of carbohydrate and energy for our farmers.
A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
And thanks for watching The Pulse. I'm Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates for you there. Bye-bye for now.